Can archaeologists explain everything they find over the course of their careers? Well, the short answer is absolutely not. They simply can't. They can tell us the age of an object, identify the material, and sometimes even tell us how it was made. But that doesn't always explain why it exists or what it was actually used for. This video is full of these kinds of perplexing discoveries. So, stay tuned and let's see what archaeologists found, what we truly know about these finds, and why some of them still refuse to make complete sense. We're starting this countdown with number 15, a cirrus from Firkat. Well, there are a lot of things that simply make no sense, and this is one of them. Around 980 AD, Firkat was one of Harald Bluetooth's great Viking ring fortresses. Archaeologists found about 30 graves there, but one woman was buried in a way archaeologists still find difficult to explain. She wore expensive blue and red clothing finished with gold thread, silver rings around her toes, and was laid inside the body of a horse-drawn carriage. 2 bronze bowls may have traveled all the way from Central Asia. But her oddest possessions were far more personal. It was not the wealth of her burial that puzzled researchers, but what she carried and used while alive. An iron staff fitted with bronze closely resembles the staffs linked with Viking vlur, women believed to practice seer magic and prophecy. Inside her purse were poisonous henbane seeds, which can cause hallucinations and euphoric states. Archaeologists also recovered owl pellets, bird and mammal bones, white lead, and a tiny silver chair-shaped amulet. Together, they raise a super chilling question. Was this woman actually practicing Viking magic? Number 14. The Atrahasis epic and the Ijiji rebellion. Here's an ancient creation story with a rather uncomfortable answer to why humans exist. The Atrahasis epic, preserved on Old Babylonian tablets from roughly the 17th century BC, begins long before its famous flood. According to the poem, the lesser gods, known as the Ijiji, were forced to dig canals and perform exhausting labor for the greater gods. After years of misery, they finally snapped, burned their tools, surrounded Enlil's house at night, and demanded an end to the work. What follows is the part that still makes the story feel strangely cold. The gods held council, and instead of forcing the Ijiji back to work, Enki proposed another solution. The birth goddess Mami mixed clay with the flesh and blood of a slain god, and humanity was formed to inherit the workload. W. G. Lambert and A.R. Millard reconstructed the surviving tablets in their 1969 edition of Atra As. In this Babylonian account, mankind doesn't arrive as creation's masterpiece. Well, we simply arrive because someone else refused the job. Number 13. The Hopewell tradition. Everyone knows the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, and Romans. But have you ever heard of the Hopewell tradition? We're sure most of us haven't, despite their story stretching across eastern North America from around 200 BC to 500 AD. Rather than one kingdom, Hopewell describes interconnected Native American communities linked by ceremonies and an enormous trading network. Copper arrived from the Great Lakes, shells from the Gulf Coast, mica from the Carolinas, and obsidian traveled from the Rocky Mountains. Then there were their earthworks. Across southern Ohio, they raised enormous circles, squares, octagons, and burial mounds, several arranged with remarkable geometric care. Their craftsmen shaped copper, mica, stone, and even rare meteoric iron into beautiful objects. But they left no written account or anything that explains their beliefs or monuments. By roughly 500 AD, the Hopewell ceremonial system had faded. Climate shifts, warfare, changing trade, and social upheaval have all been considered, leaving us with a perplexing culture whose disappearance remains debated. Number 12. The demon-trapping bowls of Mesopotamia. So, are demons actually real? If not, Then why were people burying traps for them beneath their own houses? Across Sasanian Mesopotamia, during the 5th to 7th centuries AD, thousands of clay incantation bowls were used by Jewish, Mandaean, and Christian people in present-day Iraq and Iran. Their inscriptions survive in Jewish, Babylonian, Aramaic, Mandaic, Syriac, and other Aramaic varieties, usually curling inward across the vessel in a long spiral. These weren't ordinary prayers. Individual texts name clients, identify hostile beings such as Liliths, and command troublesome spirits to be bound, expelled, restrained, or even divorced from their victims. Several bowls contain drawings of shackled demons at their centers. Archaeologists have found examples placed upside down beneath floors and thresholds. Others were paired rim to rim. The scariest detail is how personal the language becomes. Sickness, childbirth, family conflict, nightmares, and supernatural attack all appear. Whatever these families feared, they apparently wanted it legally condemned, magically restrained, and kept beneath their feet. Number 11. The mysterious king list. What would you make of a royal record claiming that 8 kings ruled for 241? 200 years before a great flood? That is the puzzle written across the Weld-Blundell prism, acquired by Herbert Weld-Blundell in 1922, and now kept at Oxford's Ashmolean Museum as AN 1923.444. Written in Sumerian cuneiform, it names rulers from cities including Eridu, Bad Tibera, Larak, Sippar, and Shuruppak. Alulim of Eridu alone receives 28,800 years, followed by Alangar with 36,000. Then comes one chilling sentence: the flood swept over. Kingship begins again afterward, but the reigns eventually shrink toward believable lengths. Other versions of the king list recovered from places including Nippur preserve related traditions, showing this wasn't confined to one tablet. Scholars generally know those numbers as legendary rather than biological lifespans. Still, the Sumerians placed mythical rulers and later historical kings in the same succession. Whatever they meant by those impossible numbers, they clearly mattered enough to preserve in clay. Number 10. The mysterious Maryland Cryptid Museum. There can be 2 possibilities here. Either the Maryland collection preserves something that would turn natural history upside down, or someone spent years building one of the most convincing fictional archives ever photographed. The collection is tied to Thomas Theodore Maryland, a man said to have spent decades gathering specimens most museums would never place behind glass. Photographs show tiny winged bodies, vampire-like skulls, mermaids, dragon remains, skeletons of fairies, and carefully labeled boxes that make the whole thing resemble an old scientific archive. There is one problem that cannot be brushed aside. No reliable historical record has established that Maryland ever existed. The collection itself is the work of British artist Alex C.F., who developed the Maryland Cryptid Museum as an elaborate fictional world. That answers the question of authenticity, but it hardly makes the photographs less disturbing. Every bone, handwritten label, wooden case, and preserved specimen was made to suggest a history that never happened, and the illusion is frighteningly convincing. Number 9. The anti-drought structure of Sumerians for so many decades. Archaeologists at Girsu had a peculiar structure they couldn't explain. Early excavators working at the ancient Sumerian city in southern Iraq encountered 2 long mud brick walls and interpreted them as part of a temple complex. Recent work by the British Museum's Girsu project has turned that old explanation on its head. Dr. Sebastian Ray and architect Ebru Torun argue that the roughly 4,000-year-old construction was actually part of an ingenious water system built when Girsu's canals were struggling. Its narrowing shape could have accelerated water through a channel, the same basic principle later known as the Venturi effect. Torun described the arrangement as absolutely one of a kind, with no close parallel known from ancient Mesopotamia. Cuneiform evidence from Girsu also records serious trouble maintaining water supplies as channels dried and silted up. That changes the mood of the whole discovery. We may be looking at Sumerian engineers confronting an environmental crisis. Number 8. The Archaean conehead woman. So many ancient civilizations deliberately changed the human body. But the woman found near Archaeum took that practice to an extraordinary extreme. Her skeleton made headlines in July 2015 after photographs showed a skull stretching dramatically upward, and it didn't take long before alien stories followed. Researcher Maria Makarova had a much more earthly explanation. She suggested the woman belonged to a Sarmatian group whose families bound children's heads with rope, gradually forcing the skull into an elongated shape. The burial dates to roughly the 2nd or 3rd century AD, meaning she lived well over 1,000 years after Archaeum itself was established in the southern Urals. That settlement, discovered in 1987 near Chelyabinsk, is generally dated to around the 17th century BC and once contained circular defensive walls, rings of houses, streets, and a central square. Russian researcher K.K. Bystrushkin later argued that its layout could track astronomical events, earning Archaeum its famous nickname, Russia's Stonehenge. The woman wasn't an alien. But why her people wanted skulls shaped this way is still a disturbing question no one can answer with certainty. Number 7. The ancient wolf god. Whatever people around Roman-era wood-eaten were worshipping, this little bronze figure gives us a rather nasty clue. Dating somewhere between the 1st and 4th centuries AD, the object shows a wolf-like animal with 2 human legs dangling from its mouth. Nothing else survives of the unfortunate person. The figure eventually entered the British Museum, yet identifying the creature has never been straightforward. Rome's famous she-wolf immediately comes to mind, especially with Romulus and Remus. But their story has one obvious problem. She nurses the twins, rather than eating them. Another possibility leads into native Celtic religion and Cuna Maglus, a deity associated with Apollo whose name has been interpreted as Hound Lord. Even that connection remains uncertain. Wood-eaten itself produced hundreds of religious offerings, suggesting an important sanctuary once stood there. So this wasn't necessarily someone's gruesome decoration. Someone may have offered it to a god whose name, story, and reason for swallowing a human have disappeared completely. Number 6. The Ethiopian healing scroll well. Here's another demon-erasing discovery that feels far stranger once we learn how it was actually used. During the 19th century, Aditra, an Ethiopian religious scholar, prepared this 6.5-foot parchment scroll specifically for a man named Haile Mikkel. It wasn't meant to be read like a book. The prayers and talismanic pictures were chosen partly according to the owner's zodiac sign because illness could be blamed on harmful spirits. 8 pointed stars appear above and below, while the center shows the archangel Phanuel holding a one-eyed, horned brown demon. That single visible eye wasn't accidental. Ethiopian artists commonly used it when portraying evil. The scroll was probably hung inside Haile Mikkel's home facing the doorway, where Phanuel was expected to confront anything supernatural attempting to enter. There's even a prayer to the archangel near the bottom. But is it truly a real healing book? Number 5. The Lost Years of Nabonidus. Nabonidus was the final monarch of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, ruling from 556 to 539 BC, but history doesn't remember him only for losing Babylon. For nearly 10 years, its king was barely in Babylon at all. Around 553 BC, Nabonidus withdrew to Tama, an Arabian oasis, leaving his son Belshazzar in charge while he remained hundreds of miles away. Why would the ruler of an empire abandon his capital for so long? Politics offers one answer. Nabonidus strongly favored the moon god Esnen, putting him at odds with Babylon's powerful priests of Marduk. But another tale makes his absence much stranger. The prayer of Nabonidus, preserved among the Dead Sea Scrolls, describes a king suffering from an ulcer for 7 years before a Jewish exorcist helped him. Excavations at Tama have since uncovered evidence of Nabonidus and a royal complex there. He then returned to Babylon, only for Cyrus the Great's Persians to conquer the empire in 539 BC. What actually kept Nabonidus at Tama, however, is still disputed. Number 4. The strange statues of Berenike, Egypt has given archaeologists countless statues, so finding another one normally wouldn't cause much fuss. Berenike was different. Ptolemy II founded this Red Sea port around 275 BC, and nearly 2,300 years later, its ruins began telling a story that hardly sounds Egyptian at all. In 2022, archaeologists working inside a Roman period temple uncovered a marble Buddha nearly 2 feet tall, dating to around the 2nd century AD. Mediterranean marble was used, yet the figure's halo and clothing followed Buddhist traditions from Asia. Sanskrit inscriptions discovered at Berenike add another twist, including one dated to the reign of Philip the Arab from 244 to 249 AD. Indian pepper, Tamil Brahmi writing, and religious traces from Nubia have surfaced here as well. So what was happening at Berenike? Egyptians, Romans, Nubians, and Indians weren't merely exchanging cargo at the docks. Their languages and gods were meeting too, thousands of miles from where anyone would expect to find them. All right, now let's move to Number 3. The Nag Hammadi Library and the Archon's A farmer searching for fertilizer probably wasn't expecting to disturb a version of Christianity that had been silent for roughly 16 centuries. In December 1945, Muhammad Ali al-Saman reportedly uncovered a large sealed jar near Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt. Inside were 13 leather-bound papyrus codices containing over 50 writings in Coptic, including the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Philip, and Apocryphon of John. That last work tells a particularly disturbing creation story. Its material world is ruled by Yaldabaoth, an arrogant figure portrayed with leonine and serpentine imagery, together with subordinate powers called archons. Humanity, according to this Gnostic account, possesses a divine element that these rulers cannot truly control, while salvation comes through awakening to its origin. The surviving codices were copied mainly during the 4th century AD, although many underlying works are considerably older. Why someone buried the books remains uncertain. Religious change may explain it, but whoever sealed that jar preserved ideas that might otherwise have disappeared completely. Number 2. The ancient mummified baboons. For centuries, Egypt kept doing business with a place called Punt, but somehow its address disappeared from history. Queen Hatshepsut even recorded her famous expedition there around 1470 BC on the walls of her temple at Deir el-Bahari, showing ships returning with myrrh trees, ivory, gold, and baboons. The Egyptians clearly knew how to reach Punt. We simply forgot where it was. Strangely enough, the best clue may have survived inside the animals they brought home. Researchers tested chemical signatures preserved in ancient mummified baboons, comparing their strontium and oxygen isotopes with populations from Africa and Arabia. The results repeatedly pulled attention toward the Horn of Africa, particularly Eritrea and Ethiopia. Another study examined mitochondrial DNA from a baboon dating between 800 and 540 BC and connected its ancestry with modern populations from Eritrea. That makes the mystery rather personal. Egyptian scribes left Punt without coordinates, while baboons carried its geographical fingerprint in their bodies for over 2,000 years. How perplexing it is. Isn't. Number 1. Hammonasset stone tools. In the eyes of an ordinary person, these might not be the kind of stones worth stopping for. Archaeologist Bob Coase saw something different among the rounded pieces associated with Hammonasset Beach State Park in Madison, Connecticut. Many are roughly baseball-sized, with surfaces that Coase believed showed deliberate polishing and shaping rather than ordinary weathering. His interpretation connects them with Native Americans who occupied the region thousands of years ago, although their purpose has never been firmly established. One possibility takes us straight to the dinner table. They may have been used to smash animal bones and reach the marrow inside. Reported traces of collagen and bone material on certain pieces gave that explanation extra weight. Then, quartz examples complicated matters, since quartz is an awkward choice for repeated pounding. Gaming stones, weights, and ceremonial pieces have all entered the discussion as alternatives. Perhaps the strangest detail is how many similar stones have turned up. People were collecting, shaping, or using them repeatedly. What they wanted them for remains the unanswered part. Well, that's all from us. Hope you found this video interesting. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.